they want to come back with something tangible that they can both offer businesses. And don't forget, Keir Starmer's traveling with a delegation of businesses and also the general public. So I think it's one of those things that doesn't particularly cost much money, but can be seen as a sign of goodwill, forging closer ties and building the relationship, which is what Keir Starmer is keen to emphasise.
Keir Starmer has secured a deal on visa-free travel to China for UK citizens during his first visit to Beijing. This is a new deal he has secured with Xi Jinping. This will apply to those travelling to China for business and as tourists for less than 30 days. Times Radio's political editor, Anna Mikhailova, is in Beijing and joins me now. Hello, Anna.
Hi, Hugo.
Thanks for being with us. I hope you're having a nice time. Look, earlier this morning, we were unsure whether China would agree to visas as part of this deal. Why was it a priority for Downing Street?
Well, I think they want to come back with something tangible that they can both offer businesses. And don't forget, Keir Starmer's travelling with a delegation of businesses and also the general public. So I think it's one of those things that doesn't particularly cost much money, but can be seen as a sign of goodwill, forging closer ties and building the relationship, which is what Keir Starmer is keen to emphasise.
Is it reciprocal?
It doesn't, I'm not sure. I need to check that. At the moment, they've mentioned that it is Brits that can have travel for up to 30 days, but also businesses. And this is, one of the announcements today. The Prime Minister came out of the meeting with Xi Jinping and says that he's made some progress on whiskey tariffs, although we're waiting to hear the details on that as well. And he also had the announcement on small boat engines, so using China to tackle migration. But I think the message he really wants to land is because at the moment, while he's coming away with a few things and we are still waiting for more and a few more meetings are yet to take place, but it doesn't sound like he has a really bulky agreement, certainly not similar to what David Cameron came away with and not even probably as much investment as Theresa May could say she secured. So I think the real selling point here is Keir Starmer saying that he is rebuilding this relationship that's been on ice for so long and that will have dividends for Brits and also for the world order as a whole. I mean, the two of them spent quite a lot of time in the public part of the meeting talking about the new world order and more unstable world. And the Chinese side actually issued an extraordinary readout saying that the world is reverting to the law of the jungle, which is obviously a veiled reference to Donald Trump. And then Keir Starmer has just been to an engagement with businesses, and he says that his engagement with China is a way of seeing the whole elephant. And what he means there is he's referencing a story that Xi Jinping tells, which is about blind men being presented with an elephant, feeling their way around different parts and thinking that it is different things. And Starmer says that he wants to see the whole elephant, not to labour the reference too much, and that he wants a more sophisticated relationship with China. But, the question for critics is, what does that actually mean? Is it going to see any tangible economic bounce for the UK? What kind of terms is the UK offering in return? We've already seen the green lighting of the big US embassy, which was very contentious. And of course, we are still waiting to hear the details of a couple of things that Keir Starmer mentioned in the meeting. So Jimmy Lai, importantly, and the sanctioned MPs, and also human rights more broadly, the plight of the Uyghurs. So, we were told that these things did come up, but we haven't seen the detail of whether or not that's led to agreement.
What's the tone been from the Chinese? Is there a sense of that they are delighted to meet with a partner, or are we there? Does it seem like Keir Starmer is there kind of as a supplicant?
Look, the Chinese are always very diplomatic and extremely polite. They don't criticize. They were very warm towards Keir Starmer. There was quite a big point being made that the meeting he had with President Xi was not only long, but actually ran well over time. So he spent about 3 hours with him, and that's about 45 minutes more than he was meant to. So, that's a way of the Chinese showing respect. But looking at the way this visit has been reported in the Chinese press, I find it striking that, yes, it's mentioned that Keir Starmer is here, the first British Prime Minister in 8 years, just like Keir Starmer keeps emphasising. But then they sort of, in the same breath, then mention all the other world leaders that are coming to China. They see it as a pattern of a more uncertain America giving China an opportunity to present itself as this more stable superpower. And, even the writer of Keir Starmer talked about the Irish Prime Minister coming recently for the first time in 15 years. 15 is more than 8. So I think that gives you a sense a little bit that I think to the Chinese, this is not an extraordinary event. This is one of a series of important leaders that they see and want to engage with. And we know that they are interested in the UK strategically, economically, in terms of intellectual rights. I mean, but it isn't also quite the red carpet that, for example, the American president would get.
Yeah, no, indeed. Look, thanks very much indeed for being with us, Anna Mikhailova. I hope you're not too exhausted over there. I appreciate the time difference is cruel. That is Anna Mikhailova, the Times Radio's political editor, speaking to us there live from Beijing. I'm joined now by Michael Sheridan, former Far East correspondent for the Sunday Times and author of The Red Emperor, Xi Jinping and His New China. Michael, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for being with us. What sort of impression do you think the Prime Minister will be making to the public in China, if any at all?
Well, he's had the full treatment from the official media, very respectful coverage. Their side of things, of course, is focused very much on what President Xi has been saying, which is the need for strategic cooperation, big international affairs, trade, the new global order. Xi Jinping doesn't bother himself with things like visas and motorboat engines, but it's been a cordial and superficially successful visit so far.
I mean, the visa thing, being able to travel there visa-free for under 30 days, is that going to, I mean, that seems like an easy win. Is that going to make much of an impact on our relations between the two nations?
It only brings us in line with lots of other European countries and states who were not in the doghouse. So it's a pretty small concession for the Chinese. They've always weaponized visas, whether those are business people or journalists or regular citizens. Very easy to do, very easy to reverse if the Chinese don't like it. And I think, a sign of goodwill, as your correspondent said, but there certainly need to be more.
Yeah, I mean, the building a stronger relationship with China, building a more lucrative relationship with China, and certainly a friendlier relationship with China. Is there a danger that puts the UK at loggerheads with the United States, which is, of course, hardening its language against China by the day?
No, I don't think so. The United States trade with China is very significant, remains so. They are strategic economic partners, even as they are rivals. But I think the British role is much more aligned with the European Union and other states which trade with China. They like the multilateral trading system. They like the benefits that free trade brought. The last few years have been very difficult, but we have not imposed tariffs on Chinese goods the way the United States has. So there's goodwill there. And also, I noticed Keir Starmer talking very much about the cost of living and the price of things in the supermarket. And of course, cheap goods from China are a way of delivering that. The Chinese currency is quite low. There is factory deflation in China. So prices from China are low and are probably going to get lower for British consumers.
There's a ritual that whenever one of our leaders speaks to China, they always say that they've raised issues like the Uyghurs or at the moment Jimmy Lai and his detention there. Does Beijing take any notice when we do that kind of thing? Does it have any impact?
Beijing will take notice if there is leverage applied. I do hope that Keir Starmer did raise Jimmy Lai's case. He's a British citizen. He's a media person. He's a newspaper publisher. He is unjustly in jail. The Chinese know that. That would actually be an easy win for them. On the other hand, there is a ritual to these things. Quite often, I was told in the past, as an official would simply hand over a list of concerns or an envelope with details in it of human rights issues which they wanted to raise, and there wouldn't be any unpleasantness over the table. However, Xi Jinping is perfectly capable of pushing back and saying that Chinese internal affairs are their own thing, and that the British should stay out of it. But when it comes to Hong Kong, when it comes to Jimmy Lai, these are areas where the UK does matter because we have a historic link, we have business interests, we have trade, and we have a treaty registered at the United Nations under which China gave certain undertakings to Hong Kong, which it is breaking. So they are not invulnerable on this. And I do hope the Prime Minister raised Jimmy Lai's case forcefully, in person, and directly.
Look, finally, Michael, there's this story as well coming out that Britain is going to share intelligence with China to stop Chinese engines and dinghies being used by illegal migrants in channel crossings. I must admit, I'm sort of slightly struggling to understand this, but is there much, do you think, that can be done from Beijing to stop people all the way over here using Chinese equipment to cross the channel?
When I hear the words intelligence sharing with China, I slightly bristle. On the other hand, the Chinese have shown themselves capable in the past of intercepting traffic and of stopping exports of sensitive or commercially damaging goods. So they certainly have the state power to intervene to stop sales of small engines. Whether they could actually interdict the networks of people who buy them and transport them across Europe to the Channel is another matter. But look, we cooperated with the Chinese before when Xi Jinping was the governor of a coastal province. A whole group of Chinese immigrants were found dead in a container in the UK. And so there was a joint effort then to clamp down on illegal movement. So it can be done. It is a police state. They do have reach. And if you can get cooperation on very carefully measured areas like this, then I think that's fine.
Michael Sheridan, former Far East correspondent for the Sunday Times and author of The Red Emperor, Xi Jinping and His New China. Thank you very much indeed, Michael.